So welcome everyone, and today we have, I think, is it week 4 or 5? I've totally forgotten which week is it. Prayers and meditation.
Week three.
Week three, yeah.
Do you remember, Chitraji?
Yeah,
Week 3. Week 3. Yeah, thank
yeah.
you. Yeah, I have these many parallel things going on. I forget the weeks. Yeah,
No problem. Yes.
yeah. So week 3, and we have two prayers with us by the mother, and why I chose two prayers this time was because the first prayer was very small, although it was very powerful. So I thought I'll just kind of combine it in continuation with December 10, which is resonating with that prayer, the earlier one, the December 5. So we'll just quickly uh, go through the transcript. Before that, I would request whoever is ready, if other people want to take time, don't want to share now, that is also okay. Whoever is ready and would like to share the reflection through the prayers, or if you feel like commenting later in the middle, that is also okay. So yeah, so I am assuming Jyotsna ji would like to share later. So Chitra ji, would you have anything to share in the beginning?
Yeah, I'll tell something actually
Yes.
about that prayer, no? December 5th prayer.
Yes.
Long time, that was my condition actually. So, very intense actually. Because mother came to me through dream first time. Then after that, nothing actually. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
that was lingering in my mind always actually. So that intensity was there for a long time. That longing was there. Then suddenly I read one of the prayer of Amirta, one of the sadhak. No, he wrote a
Yes.
beautiful prayer,
Yes.
and he ended up like this: "Oh mother, make me thine in thy own way, in thy own time." So
Beautiful.
then I thought, yeah, such a sadhak, advanced sadhak, and
Yeah.
he could write like that. How can I be like that? I mean,
Beautiful.
so much of, yeah, intensity and
Yeah.
um, that is there. But then about the health and all, Alokda mentioned, no, even during ill health, you should not be in haste to get well soon. Actually, yeah, that is the thing going on. But I don't know. Sometimes I can be peaceful. Sometimes I can't.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Completely.
yeah, that is the thing.
Mm.
And again, yeah, as you said, it is resonating. December 5th and December 12th is totally connected. Actually, I think when we discuss, I can tell something about that December 10th. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing, actually.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah, yeah, I will share that. Yeah, thank you.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah,
This thing that you mentioned about Amrita, I
yeah,
think we had read in one of the transcripts where Alokda had shared some
mhm,
incident that it
yeah,
was Amrita's birthday, I believe, and
yeah, yeah.
they so everybody was asking, "What are you? Mother will give you anything. What are you asking? What are you asking? Ask for a transformation, something
Yeah,
like."
yeah, yeah, correct, correct,
So
correct.
he
She
said
asked for, yeah,
that if she's asking too much, let me ask for two banyans or
yeah,
something.
yeah.
Because
Because,
transformation she will give,
yeah,
but I'm
yeah,
ready. Yeah,
yeah.
that was really
Because
nice.
he was very firm. He said, "Mother knows everything. Just she is playing with me, so I
Yeah,
need not ask anything. And now I need two bunions."
so beautiful. Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you.
yeah,
Okay, so I hope all of us can see the screen. Let us go through the. Taru, would you like to share anything on prayer number 1, December 5?
Yeah, hi. I read it like last week.
Huh.
I, I just remember, I don't know, it was from prayer one or two, that thing that said that I am the leaf that, the
Yeah.
divine blows on and I go wherever he wants me to. That's
Yes.
the one thing that I remember. Other than that, I'm so sorry that
Yeah.
this time I didn't. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
thank you.
beautiful. Thank you. Yes, we'll come to that. The thing that you mentioned, we'll come to that. Okay, so let's go through the transcript a bit. So in the first one, December 5, Alokda is sharing, if we really want grace to act, the first thing is to stay calm within. And it is such a big of a challenge, because when we are going through a challenge, especially when uh, we are totally disturbed, the being is completely moved or disturbed. And Alokda is sharing, or the mother is sharing, that in only in these times, if you want the grace to act, the first condition is to stay calm within. So how to do that? So it seems like a vicious trap actually. I am restless, I want rest, and what is needed of me to come to rest first, so that the restlessness can be worked upon. Now this is the catch, and let us explore this catch, because I think this is very, very important to explore it. So what remind I got reminded of was when Kabir shares in one of the couplets, sukh mein sumiran na kiya, dukh mein karte yaad, kahe Kabir ta das ki, kaun sune faryad. So it's as if ki, if when things are going so called okay, the things are not really in upheaval, and I do not practice uh, knowing myself as the calm and peace within, uh, it will be really rare that I'll be able to do it when real challenge happens. Sukh mein sumiran na kiya. So when you did not remember who you truly are, or the divine, when there were good times going on, so-called pleasurable, okay, normal times going on, when you did not do that then, and now when the dukh strikes, so-called dukh strikes, and when you will try to remember, it will be not that easy to remember, because the habit is not there. So it's all about getting rid of the old past habits, our tendencies and patterns, which are not serving us well, and fall into newer pattern, if one can say, of remembering more and more who I truly am, being more in touch with my deeper essence, deeper being. Why only in the case of crisis? Why not when things are going fine? So this is the catch, because in one of the sessions earlier, which we used to do on Saturdays, we had explored restlessness, and there, we as we were exploring, it turned out that restlessness is seeking rest. So we have to give rest to restlessness. Restlessness will not arrive at rest by doing something, some activity, or falling into some pleasurable activity. It will just get masked. So what restlessness itself is seeking is deep rest. That's its destiny. It's like a wave has originated in the ocean, and what is the destiny of the wave? To be the ocean again, to fall back into the ocean, then come back again, and to fall back into the ocean. It is the ocean itself. So this, if we can maybe reflect over this, that if we really want grace to act, now what does it mean by uh, wanting grace to act? So we all go through several life experiences, life challenges, all of us have our share, and through whatever experience I am going through, if I am able to use it as a means to the truth that it indicates towards, then it is an experience well lived. No matter it may be a ugly, very sad, lower impulsive, whatever, think of the worst as possible. But if I have used that experience for the purpose why it came, to point me towards my own truth, then grace has, it's kind of invocation of the grace has happened, and the grace is showing up us the path. Now it does not mean the grace is not usually present. Everything is work of grace only. Everything is work of grace. But we crave for some light when we are going through darkness. So that is what it is referred to. that if you really want to seek light and clarity in your darker challenges, if you really want grace to act, the first thing is to stay calm. Now, this calm is, again, as we have seen in our own journeys, it develops more and more as we go about in time in our life. It develops more and more, as if this calm grows, this peace grows and grows. Life challenges remain more or less the same, but peace grows. Our way of handling them, our way of facing those very same situations changes. So the experience completely changes. And when calm is there, when the poise is there inside the being, then you can be really sure that the grace is acting. Why? Because peace and calm is our true nature. That is our true nature. So whatever action I will be taking in those times where I am coming from calm and still and poise, it will be a decision or a action which is good for each and everyone around me and for myself. While if I take a decision or a step in haste, in confusion, it has the possibility, a very high chance to land up in another confusion, and then another confusion, and then another confusion. So if I want to break this pattern of cause and effect, what we call as karma, what do I have to do? I have to be seated more and more in the calm and stillness within. We all have touched that space. It is not a possibility that we have not touched that space within us. So to bring it more to life, to bring it more as a reality rather than what looks like reality right now is confusion and chaos, and the peace and stillness come and go, right? So then how would it be that peace and stillness are the one that is, that are my lifelong friends, and confusion and chaos may come and go, challenges may come and go, but peace and stillness do not go away. So it deepens as we go, ahead in this journey. Yeah, keep sharing whenever you have anything. Keep sharing. Yeah. So this is what Alokda has shared, that this is the radical remedy. We talk about diseases, we talk about chronic illnesses. If one is able to establish an unwavering faith and an immovable peace in the midst of all diseases and circumstances, and which grows more and more, because once you get a taste of it, it is not possible that it leaves you, because it's our true nature. That is the radical remedy for each and every illness or disease that we kind of go through in life. Mental disease, emotional diseases, and even physical diseases. In the middle of physical disease, I can be truly at ease if I am, I've used the disease to reach the truth where the disease was pointing me towards. Yes. This just reminded me of how a ripple is created in, for example, a pond which is still. Imagine that you are watching a pond, a little pond, and it is completely still pond, and the moment you throw a disturbance into it, what happens? Ripples are created. If you throw a stone into it, ripples are created, and those ripples are only stationary, as temporary. They kind of dissolve and fade out back into the pond, and the pond is still back again. So then the disturbances of life, or chaos and confusion of life, they may still arise. Obviously, there is so much of work that we have to do. They may still arise, they will still arise, but then they'll just fade out in the deep and spreading calm that is taking charge of our being. And one continuously tastes this nectar of divine consciousness. One is aware that yes, it is there and the path is right. One just knows, there is a pure knowing that it is okay, everything is all right. So this December 5, 1912. In peace and silence, the eternal manifests. It's the breeding ground for eternal. Peace and silence are the breeding grounds. Allow nothing to disturb you, and the eternal will manifest. Now, when it is said that the eternal is will manifest, eternal is already manifesting. But the way right now that it manifests is through our egos, which is a distortion. So when we allow more and more peace and silence to take charge of our being, then the eternal is able to manifest the truth in its own beauty. The ugliness will disappear, because the ugliness happens only owing to the distortion of the mind, the distortion of the ego. When that distortion now vanishes, when peace and silence is there, then the mind cannot be. The mind cannot be when peace and silence are taking charge of the being. In that moment, the mind cannot be. So there will be not any distortion that will be there to mask the original manifestation of the truth. Imagine that there is a wall, brick wall that is there, and the sun is shining. Now the sun is shining, but the wall is so strong that the sun is not able to cross over. So the more and more this wall becomes thin like a curtain. Now the eternal, which was already manifesting, will be able to manifest its beauty out through that thin curtain. And whatever thin, delicate designs are there on that curtain will kind of, reflect back in the shadow, which happens on the other side. Almost like that. Have perfect equality in face of all, and the eternal will be there. Yes, we should not put too much intensity, as Chitra Didi was sharing, that vital intensity. It happens with each one of us. We are all gifted with the vital, and slowly only we get to know its purpose and why it is there and its nature and how it is working. And many a times the whole lifetime passes by, we don't even get to know what is this thing that is driving me. We don't get to know. So vital is the seat of emotions, the desires, the impulsions. The life energy is the vital life force. It drives, it has enthusiasm. But if not known well, if not understood in its own nature, then the vital can become one's master. So how to know the nature of the vital, so that vital can be used and it is not misusing this thing called human being, which happens usually the whole of our lifetime. So we should not put too much intensity, too much effort into our seeking for thee. The effort and intensity become a wheel in front of thee. Why a wheel? Because if I am saying, oh my God, I want to be with the mother, I want to be with the mother, I am not finding the mother, I am not finding the mother. This seeking itself is the brick wall. Because mother is all there is. Just because I'm not able to feel the mother does not mean that the mother is not there. Many a times I am not able to feel anything. It doesn't mean that those things do not exist. So just moving away, stepping back from my sense perceptions, that it's okay if I'm not feeling the mother. I know that the mother is there. There is a certitude in the being. So mother is the guiding light. There can be no manifestation without the mother. So what is the hurry? What is the rush? It's like, one is soothing one's own vital. That no matter if I cannot see the light right now in darkness, I know that the light will be shown to me. And with this certitude, in no time, the light is shown in its own way. So this is what we do, that we seek so much that the seeking itself becomes a barrier to know what is very obvious right there. It's like, almost missing the air while living a whole life. A whole life has been lived and I have forever missed the air which actually sustained me, because I was never there. It does not mean that the air was not there. The air was forever there. It was sustaining me. It did not mean that at times when I was unaware of the air, it was not sustaining me. It was still sustaining me. So that is the certitude one slowly gradually develops on this journey, on this path, that it's okay whether I am feeling or thinking about the mother or not. I know that the mother is there and I am guided. There is no chance that I am not guided. That kind of an unshakable certitude, which may obviously begin with a streak of faith. Just a streak of faith in the beginning is enough. Yes. We must not desire to see thee, for that is still a mental agitation which obscures thy eternal presence. Just as we were sharing earlier, that when I am just in this vital impulse or mental impulse of seeking something, when will I get rest? When will I get rest? I'm so restless. I'm so restless. Like that, I increase my restlessness. I increase the agitation further. While what the agitation is seeking is rest. And what am I giving to the agitation? More agitation. So what is to be done? When I am going through challenging phases where the mind is also disturbed, the emotions are also disturbed, I have no clue what to do. Plunge deep down in your being. Deep down in your being. And stay as if in the lap of the mother. One does not even need to imagine mother's figure. There is no need. Those of us who want to do that, they are free to do that. But those of us who are not even connected with the mother, the more I take a plunge in deep in the depths of my being, I see that there is eternal peace and rest there. I can just rest. I do not need to resolve the untangled knots in the surface consciousness. There is no need. I will be guided. The right action will be shown to me. And now the mind can be at rest. Now the emotions also can be at rest. So as if nurturing or nursing yourself in the depths of the being. Divine, the nectar of the divine consciousness, as we read in the last to last prayers. So we must not desire to see thee, because the desire is again an agitation. That, oh my God, something is missing. Oh my God, I'm not yet there. Oh my God, I'm not yet there. So that is again an agitation. It is in the most complete peace, serenity, and equality that all is thou, even as thou art all. And the least vibration in this perfectly pure and calm atmosphere is an obstacle to thy manifestation. I relate this very much with a continuous unfoldment of a new life. There is no plan per se. The plans and paths are not charted, and yet there is a beauty in the unfolding. This is the benefit, this is the side effect of basking in your truer being, basking in the deeper being. That one is just shown exactly what to do, what step to take. Nothing has been planned, no planning of the logical reasoning of the mind has been used, but it is just shown. It's like pure direct perception, direct knowing. I know this is where I should be or not. So least vibration in this perfectly pure and calm atmosphere is an obstacle to thy manifestation. So we should, if one can see this, what is our job then? Whenever I face restlessness, whenever I face a challenge, I can tell myself I do not need to resolve or connect the dots in my surface consciousness to resolve the restlessness or the chaos. There is no need. Dive deep into the being, lie there, bask in the sun, eternal sun, and from there one just would know what is the right step to be taken. One would just know. And that would be the right action coming from our divine truth. That is where Mother shares that the less agitated we are, the more the divine can act. So there would be no distortion in this moment by the ego, by the mind interfering. No haste, no inquietude, no tension. Thou, nothing but thou, without any analysis or any objectivizing, and thou art there without a possible doubt, for all becomes a holy peace and a sacred silence. So, in the middle of my conflicts, my relationships which are not resolved, yes, demands are not met, expectations are not met. In the middle of all that incompletion, there is something which is completely complete, eternally complete. Can I touch that space? Can I allow myself more and more to be there in those depths? This is the temple. Alokda shares here that we need not even go to external temples and make it a ritual that, oh my god, I haven't gone to the temple today, how would I spend the day and all that. We become too attached to all those rituals. So this is the inner temple that we carry forever, eternally, wherever we are. This temple never leaves us. There is no need for any ritual. There is no need for any, name of the divine, or whether we want to use the name of the divine, that is also okay. Nirgun or with gun, all is fine. But there is no one particular method to be used here. And that is better than all the meditations in the world. Now we don't even need to sit separately for a meditation. When I am tuning again and again deeply into my being, it is a continuous daily meditation, day to day, moment to moment meditation that I am involved in. Taking each moment as given from a divine, and okay, what is the best I can do here? What is the best procedure I can do here? What is the best in this moment now? In whatever capacity we become aware of those moments, many a times we miss those moments because it requires a lot of slowing down to be kind of offering each and every action to the divine. It requires a lot of slowing down. So in the beginning, one can be just content that even in few moments of the day, I am able to do that. That is enough. That is a good start. That is a good baby steps. And that is better than all the meditations of the world. Like it's more like a continuous self-giving to the divine. More and more self-giving to the divine. Making sure that I tune more within the being again and again and take the action from there. Yes, so anything from here? We are done with the first prayer. If there is anything so far, then feel free to share. Okay, so if not anything, then I would like to request one of you to read uh, the first prayer. Yes, who would like to read?
I'll read.
Yes, please.
December 5th, 1912. In peace and silence, the eternal manifests. Allow nothing to disturb you, and the eternal will manifest. Have perfect equality in face of all, and the eternal will be there. Yes, we should not put too much intensity, too much effort into our seeking for thee. The effort and intensity become a veil in front of thee. We must not desire to see thee, for that is still a mental agitation which obscures thy eternal presence. It is in the most complete peace, serenity, and equality that all is thou, even as thou art all, and the least vibration in this perfectly pure and calm atmosphere is an obstacle to thy manifestation. No haste, no inquietude, no tension. Thou, nothing but thou, without any analysis or any objectivizing, and thou art there without a possible doubt, for all becomes a holy peace and a sacred silence. And that is better than all the meditations in the world.
Beautiful. Thank you. It is almost feels like there is an urgency in our lives to tap into this deeper space which is available 24/7 to us, which is completely calm, poised, and still. And if not, that's the world we have created, in haste, in desires, following our blind ambitions. So more and more, there is almost a responsibility that all of us have, each one of us, to tap more and more into our truer space and act from there rather than acting from haste, confusion, which we still do so many times. So in gradations, it should get lower and lower and lower, in as much capacity as one feels ready. So this was the first prayer, and the second one that I shared with you was this December 10, 1912. And here it is almost a continuation. Why? Because before I am in touch with this deeper space, the sadhana has not even begun, if one can call it the sadhana. It's more like dress rehearsals going on. As Sri Aurobindo and Mother also say that nirvana is not the last step, it is the first step. The realization of my true nature is the first step on integral yoga's path. Why the first step? Because only then I become capable of going through the life challenges which always come here to show me some greater vision, some larger vision. Then I'm being with those challenges with a right attitude. So the right attitude cannot be there if I'm not in touch with the truer being, if I'm not in touch with my deeper depths. I cannot be in the right attitude. And once I am kind of gradually increasing more and more right attitude in my life, I will see that all the challenges, all the difficulties, they actually become a way of exploration of life. There is nothing that feels like it is stopping me or masking my sadhana, nothing like that. Each and every part and facet of life becomes a sadhana. It is a process to again and again bring me closer to my own deeper essence and make the actions or behaviors or words more and more from that space. So in this prayer, it's touching that only, that once you have attained this realization, or you have gotten a taste of who you truly are. Not even a taste, because mother had realized this realization when she's writing this prayer. Now what is happening in her outer actions, how they are being changed, how the quality of outer actions is being changed by being in touch with her true nature, her true essence. Yeah. So mother reveals, as Alokdaya shares, this is the gospel of Gita almost, karma yoga. What is the right way of doing karma? That once you know who you truly are, and it is increasing in gradation, that knowing is becoming fuller and fuller, and it is manifesting more and more in your outer life. What is the way to work? What is the right way to work? So usually how we work is we follow some ambition. There is a hidden incompletion that I am feeling, and I do some activity so that that incompletion is fulfilled. I am desiring for something, I do some activity so that the desire is fulfilled. These are the motives behind our actions usually. I never do an action which is more like a spilling out of my being. I rarely do an action which is spilling out of my being. So once when one is stabilized in the true nature, one knows that this is the divine presence that I am. Now the truer action can begin, because now whatever action I will be doing will not be coming out of this sense of desire, of sense of ambition, or sense of lack. So it will be more like a giving out of my being. It's more like a self giving. I am offering myself to the world. This is the way of karma yoga. So here Alokda shares that the usually how we work is through vital spontaneity. There is this impulsion to act, and we act. But what if when the impulsions are being settled now? The one who has known his true nature, for him no impulsions are there. So what is this? What is that urge that would urge him to act? So one is not acting either through restlessness, one is not act either through a logical plan, thinking and reasoning. One is just acting as an instrument of that truth. Just that, it's almost purposeless, and yet there is a very high purpose to it. So there is no self-fulfillment that I am gaining through that work that I am doing. There is no self, that I am not lacking something in myself and the work will fulfill me. That kind of thing is not happening. And this is what Taru had liked this line. I am not a Gyani, Sri Aurobindo shares. I am not a Gyani, I am not a Bhakta. I am a leaf driven by the breath of Lord. And Kabir on the same lines shares that Kabir kutta Ram ka, motiyan mera Ram naam, dori lagi prem ki, jit khiche tit jaye. So he's saying that Kabir is a dog of the Lord Ram, not the deity Ram, uh, the Nirgun Ram. Kabir is the dog of Ram, and wherever truth takes me, I am just like a slave to truth. So I'm working under the impulsion of truth, and not under an impulsion of my own desires and thinking and reasoning and other manipulations. Yeah. So December 10, O Supreme Master, Eternal Teacher, it has been once more granted me to verify the unequaled effectivity of a full confidence in thy leading. So Mother is sharing that I have been shown once again that the more I rely completely and solely on you, I am just shown the path. I don't need to calculate. There is no calculation I have to do. Thy light was manifested through my mouth yesterday, and it met no resistance in me. The instrument was willing, supple, keen of edge. So this is in reference to Mother giving a speech, and she's sharing that I began to talk, and there was no planning, nothing, no draft prepared earlier beforehand. And when thy light began to manifest through my mouth or words, as if the instrument was completely hollow and ready to manifest those words out. There was no resistance from the mind. The mind was not calculating whether I should speak the word, or would it be adequate, would it be ethical, all that calculation the mind was not interfering with. So that's why mother says that it met no resistance in me. It just flowed through me like the breath of the Lord. The instrument, which is the mouth and the words and the throat, or the mother herself, the being, was willing, supple, and keen of edge. And at this point, Alokda is also sharing this anecdote from Sri Aurobindo when he asks Lele Maharaj that my mind is completely blank, it's silent. What do you want me to say? I have no plan or no kind of, nothing charted out which I want to say. And Lele Maharaj said that just do pranam to the divine, and whatever is needed, he will speak through you. There is no planning that needs to be done. And Sri Aurobindo shares in one of the speeches that I planned something else, but when I started speaking, the divine spoke through me, and I just, he just put some other words on my throat or in my head. So it was just a direct manifestation of the truth. And we may have touched in our own lives also these spaces where the mind is not interfering that much, and somehow the truth is spoken out through us. But the mind may come later on and begin to say, hey, I did that. I was the one who was the doer. But that's again the clown taking the bow. The mind was not even there when the thing was happening. In those moments where the mind is completely silent, not active at all, those are the moments where the truth can manifest itself. Yes, so there, Alokda shares that truth can be manifested through any organ. It doesn't have to be a work of hand or, some particular kind of maybe writing or something else. It can be mouth, speech, any organ of the instrument can be used by the divine to manifest the truth. For an artist, it would be the hands making art. For a person who is a speaker, it would be the mouth, it would be the throat, becoming an instrument. So the divine work knows no bar. It can be done through any and whatever opening it finds. And this was very interesting what Alokda shares here, that in Tantra there are these 4 levels at which speech operates. The first level is Vaikhari, and the second one Madhyama. These are the lower levels of speech, the outward speech. Vaikhari is the outward speech. Madhyama is what is in the thoughts, a little subtler, what is going on in my head, what is the, going on, the story that is brimming up. And then there is this Pashyanti Vak, which is the seeing intelligence, pure perception. You just see, and it's like given to you, it's shown to you, and then you speak it out. The truth has been revealed to me, and then I speak it out, and which spreads in the atmosphere, having its effect. And then there is, beyond all these, there is Paravak, which is the ultimate nad, where there is this primal stir, and ultimately speech must embody that. So directly coming from the source, the origin itself. And Alokda shares here that, mother's speech, he's saying that, of course, I'm sure mother's speech is paravak. It is coming directly from the origin, from the source itself. And mother at one point shares that, be careful when you read my words, because they are full of consciousness. That's why they have so much of impact when you read them or when you go through them. The words of the mother, the prayers of the mother, all of that has so much of impact. Why? Because they are full of light. They are coming from the source itself. So we must at least strive to, go forward in our progression from Vaikhari and Madhyama more and more towards at least Pashyanti Vak, where we are sharing our reflections, which are shown to us, like truth has been revealed, and which is now being shared in an outward way, through words or writings. So at least strive for that. And again, regarding speech, Kabir has also said so much. Boli ek amol hai, jo koi bole jani, hiye tarazu tol ke tab mukh baharani. Aisi bani boliye, man ka apa khoye, that first you lose the I-ness of the ego. Man ka apa kho ke. Man se jo apa originate ho raha hai, the ego that is originated from the mind. First you lose that. ऐसी बानी बोलिए मन का आपा खोए. मन का आपा खो के you speak out the words. औरन को शीतल करे आप हूं शीतल होए. Only those words will be able to soothe the others and also have a soothing effect on our own being. And we all have tasted those words whenever they come out of our mouth. They soothe ourselves and they soothe also the one who is listening. And we also have a taste of the lower levels very much, the Vaikhari and Madhyama, which are coming out of our emotional grudges. And we all do that. We all go through these phases. Wherever the stories that the mind is making up, all that, when it is spoken out, what kind of effect that has on myself and the other. So there is so much that we have to still do on this path. So much of refinement to be done. Yeah. So Mother continues then. Thy light was manifested through my mouth yesterday, and it met no resistance in me. The instrument was willing, supple, keen of edge. It is thou who art the doer in each thing and each being. Now Mother is continuing that experience where she felt that yes, something else spoke through me. Now the thought is not saying and overpowering it and saying I was the one who did it, I was the one. The thought is completely not here there. Mother has a strong certitude that it was only the divine who could do this, otherwise there is no chance. And this is what, how does the resistance gets created? That something you are told, you are shown a truth within the being, that truth, but the mind comes in the way and the mind creates doubt. Oh my god, no, I should not be saying that. I should not be saying that. I am not worthy enough. No, there is no chance this is right. So all these doubts and confusions, mind comes on the way and kind of creates a wall of resistance, even when the direct intuition is provided to me at moments. So this is how we kind of chop and mix and cut the truth according to our own agendas, hidden agendas. So this is what we need to get more hollow of, like a flute. It is hollow, and that's why the breath of the Lord can flow through it. And here Alokda shares that why in Savitri, Sri Aurobindo had to revise Savitri again and again. So many revisions he did, because he was seeing that when the truth manifests itself through the mind, and when it is coming out on the paper, on the way to the paper, there are already so many subtle distortions that have happened. So the more and more as Sri Aurobindo grew in his consciousness, more and more, touched the levels of the supermind, he saw that the whatever I have written past, few years ago, it is not explaining it that clearly, and now I can put it even much clearly. So, and even when he was making these editings, the editings were not done through a logical mind. The editings also came through direct intuition, direct perception, that yes, this is the word need to be put and that needs to be cut off. A direct insight, direct intuition, direct transmission. Yes. And here Alokda shares, it almost gave me tears, that we do this, we do this so many times that we know that we should not be speaking those harsh words to people around us and to our own self. And yet we fall into a trap again and again, in no matter how reduced quantity now, but we do it again and again. So Alokda shares that if we continue using these harsh words, we do not cool the other person and myself. It is almost like a spiritual suicide. We are just betraying our own truth here. And the idea is not to fall into a blame game that, oh my God, I did it again and how bad am I? Not there. We have discussed that in earlier prayers also, that the best way to go through these situations where something gets done and one feels it was a mistake, realize the mistake immediately, know that yes, it was not the right way for me to go about it, plunge deep in the peace and stillness, get rejuvenated, and come back again with even greater certitude. Do not try to resolve the thing on the outer surface. And the right action will be shown to me if there is any right action needs to be taken. Most of the times, right action is a silent action. Most of the times, when these emotional conflicts are happening, we can actually be completely in our peace and silence, and we are just shown what is the right way by speaking more and more, by asking more and more, by getting entangled more and more in words with the other person. We just create more and more confusion. So if we can relax in those times where we are not finding a resolution, just go deep in the being, relax in the eternal sun, and just that is needed. The right action will be shown. No blame game is required. It is thou who art the doer in each thing and each being, and he who is near enough to thee to see thee in all actions without exception will know how to transform each act into a benediction. So here mother is not even sharing that the one who has achieved union with you, only one who is near enough to thee, that is enough. And we all are. The mental haze and confusion may tell us that, oh, you are so far away. But we are not, because it is our essence. We call it as divine essence that is part of each one of us. So when it is my essence, which is essential to my being, how can I be ever far away from it? That is the certitude. So once I know that it is you only, the divine, through each and every action, then each and every action, whether it's an ugly action that has happened, by a mistake that has happened, a wrongdoing that has happened, even that act can be turned into a benediction. How? Because I will use that action or a challenge now to go deeper and closer to my own truth. And in that sense, that action has served its purpose. It has brought me even closer to my own deeper truth. That is the work done its job. The challenge has done its job. Again, remember and offer, remember and offer. Whenever one sees anything that is like a ripple in the being, just keep on offering it. If one knows how to offer, just offer it. Mother, I give it to you. Mother, I see this. Mother, I give it to you. No, I don't want to hold on to this. Mother, I give it to you. Mother, I give the whole being to you again and again, yet again. Why again? Because we keep on taking ourselves back from the mother. One hidden agenda, one hidden desire comes, and we take ourselves back from the mother again. So that's why the need to give ourselves again and again.
Here about the offering, no? Yeah. One Saundralagiri sloha is there, actually, beautiful sloha. It is by Adi Shankara, actually one who is severely taught Advaita, no, to everyone.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
he praised the Devi in Saundralagiri with 100 verses, actually. I will read out that verse first,
Sure.
and then I will tell the meaning. It is beautiful, same as this prayer. It is very
Sure.
beautiful, actually, yeah. जबो जल्पः शिल्पं सकलमपि मुद्रा विरचना गतिः प्रादर्शिन्यक्रमण मशनात् याहुति विधिः प्रणामः संवेशः सुखमखिलम् आत्मार्पणदृशा सपर्या पर्यायस्तव भवति यन्मे विलसितम्. The meaning is, actually I translated in English, all I perform with the motive of surrender. Whatever I talk, let it become a mantra. Whenever I move with my limbs, I mean with the body movements, that it becomes the mudras. Wherever I walk, whenever I walk, let it become a circumambulation towards thee. Whatever I eat, let it become a yajna towards thee. Even lying down is a namaskar to thee. So,
Beautiful.
like this, whatever we do for our comfort, everything become a prayer towards thee.
Beautiful.
Yeah, this is a total surrender.
Mm.
So this is the first thing I came to know about, like the prayer, like surrender prayer, no?
Yes,
Then
yes,
yeah, when I read this in prayers and meditations, I wondered how it is totally resonate with this actually.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. This is from Saundarya Lahiri, you said,
Yeah,
right?
Soundarya Lagari, yeah.
Beautiful.
Soundarya Lagari, yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah.
Because he is the one who taught Advaita, no, to everyone, to, I mean,
Yes.
but
Yes.
he is the one also with a lot of bhakti bhava. He wrote this Soundarya Lagari actually.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So here, Alokda also warns us that not to use our anger and all these emotions, that saying that divine is acting through me and that is why I'm angry, because we are not at the stage where the divine is without any obstruction acting through us, without any distortion of the ego, and we can just use it as a mask for vital impulse and vital, spontaneity. So Alokda shares that yes, this comes at a stage when one has already arrived at a state of inner freedom. So we should not mistake prematurely that mother is doing everything and mother is making me do it. So even when I am angry, mother is the one who is making me angry. We should not be using those things for our own misuse. Yeah. And here, fear and anger, Alokda shares that they are like distortions which are arising from below to mix with the divine action. Now, it is very clear, but I would like to maybe shed a little clarity here that fear and anger both are coming from the sense of being separate. Whenever I feel that I have been hurt and I need to preserve myself, otherwise people will hurt me and I will be, universe will go against me. This is all the work of a separate self. This is not coming out of oneness. So fear, why mother has really warned us against fear, because fear is nothing but perpetuating the separate sense of self, that I am the ego and I need to preserve myself. So the more I buy into the game of fear, the more I identify myself as a separate self, as a limited ego, which I am not. So it's a falsehood. It's a falsehood. I am identifying to a falsehood. And anger, again, anger, whenever I become angry, usually the anger is always there when things are not in our control, or people are not doing things according to what I think should be the case. So again, that I comes into the being, the sense of me, that I know the best and this is how it should be, thus why it was not done like that, so I am angry. I knew that this should how my life should move, and why is it not behaving like that? So I'm angry. So it is all, fear and anger is nothing but perpetuation of a separate sense of self, which is a falsehood in itself. Because all that is one pure, undivided consciousness. There is no separation there. Now, it does not mean that if I am a supervisor of a space and I have to instruct people to work, I cannot tell them what is the right way. Obviously, I tell them. But then I can also do without the use of, being angry, or, just unnecessarily creating somebody's else's blood pressure high and, my own. So there would be no need for that. There would be other means also through which that work would get done. Yeah. So how does one go there? This, I think we have already touched upon Rajo Guna, Tamo Guna, and Sattva Guna. In one of our sessions we did that. I think it was on ego, the earlier sessions that we used to do on Saturdays. In one of the sessions called ego, we touched upon the tamasic ego, the Rajasic ego and the Sattvic ego, and then altogether all the egos have to be left behind on this way. So the Tamasic ego is inertia, the one in inertia, the one who does not even admit that there is something that I need to do, that there is something that needs to be done. There is the separate sense of self is perpetuating itself by being in inertia. So this is the Tamasic ego. Rajasic ego is the ego that has realized that yes, there is something lacking. I know, I see that, and maybe let me go through these pleasures and consume so that I can become happy. So that is the bhoga, bhogvadi ego or the consumerist ego. That is even one step more than the Tamasic ego because it is moving us from the inertia. So it is one step. I have moved one step ahead, so called. And then there is this Sattvic ego, which is relying solely on the guru, on the words full of light and consciousness, so that this incompletion that I feel within, I need to resolve this. Where do I find the resolution? So let me go from darkness to light. Let me find a permanent resolution. So that is the Sattvic ego. Those of us who go to gurus, they kind of experience such kind of a manifestation. And then even Sattvic ego has to be left behind because these are nothing but bondages. These qualities, the Tamasic quality, the Rajasic quality, and the Sattvic quality, these are qualities, these are bondages on our being because our being is limitless, our being is undefinable. So even the Sattvic ego, if I am throughout my life, I'm just kind of clinging to me, the image of me as a bhakta, image of me who is sticking to one, kind of an image, that is again limiting the being. So they say that even the last step is that leaving of all these three gunas altogether, and that is I may be wrong, but I think that is one of the purposes or metaphorical meanings of Shivji's Trishul. The Trishul is it has three edges, right? Three sharp edges with which it kills all these gunas and is beyond all these gunas. Beyond the Tamasic, beyond the Rajasic, beyond the Sattvic. So yeah, here Alok has also shared that one has risen beyond the Sattva guna, the action which is a direct manifestation of truth, pure perception, pure knowing. There is no doubt in that action. And what matters then, mother shares always towards the end of the prayers, mother just shares the most important thing that matters to us. To abide always in thee is the one thing that matters. No matter how many challenges and ups and downs or mistakes and wrongdoings I may go through, what is the ultimate that I have to come back to again and again, yet again? Because I forget not to delve in guilt and shame. If we will delve in guilt and shame, then there would be no redemption for people like, people who make, bigger heinous crimes. How would they find redemption if guilt and shame would just perpetuate their misery? So they also have redemption. And where is the redemption? The redemption is to leave the guilt and shame aside, to let go of all the past experiences, and to abide always in thee. Become anew, become afresh each and every moment whenever I am capable. Leave the past altogether and be reborn in the newness of life. That is the one thing that matters. And it has to be done infinite number of times. There is no stopping here, that yes, I have done it, that is enough. Now I am immortal. So it has to be continuously done and redone and redone and redone. And this is why abhyas, saints and mystics have called abhyas is required, because the old tendencies jump up anytime. Yeah. And this is beautiful that, Alokda is sharing that, is my action, ask yourself inwardly, is my action taking me away from this inner peace or inner stillness or inner divine mother? Is my action in alignment with that inner truth of my being? If it is not, then one has to decide against that action. And if it is, then one carries on that action. But for that, one needs to slow down, because without slowing down, I would not even contemplate whether my action is required or not required. I would just go and do it in a sense of haste, like we do it mostly. Yeah. So all that is deviating from the truth has to be avoided. And if something has been done which was against my truth, and how would I know that? I would sense a strong unease in myself, discomfort in my being. And the moment I know it, I look at the challenge or the situation or my action, whatever I did. I see that yes, it was wrong, and there is no need to go in blame and guilt and sin and all that. Just go straight towards the next step. Be the child of the mother, innocent, untouched, and in the lap of the mother, and again act from there. There is no need to go into the mirth and dirt of guilt and shame. It's more depressing than all the other challenges. Yeah. So here Alokda also shares a few signs and symptoms that if we feel the heaviness, if we feel restlessness, excitement, anger, frustration, depression, all these are nothing but symptoms or signs that I have deviated from my truth of my being. So when all these things come, there is no need to worry about them. When restlessness comes, depression comes, frustration comes, a sense of lack comes, I just tell myself, I have somewhere deviated from my truth. Let us go back there and, find, touch the Divine Mother, touch the deep peace and stillness in my own being. It is not away from me. Immediately get back into action. It's more like a non action rather than action. Get back into non action, because relaxing in our truth of the being is a non-action. It's not an action. I am who I am. But whenever I do something which is straying away from this deep stillness and poise and peace and clarity, I know immediately that I have deviated from it. So again, come back home, come back home, come back home. No need to delve into shame, guilt, blame and all that. Yes. Always and ever more and more in thee, beyond illusions and the deceptions of senses. And Alukda shares that the biggest illusion is I am the doer. Even when we fall into the trap of shame, guilt, and being a victim, and all these blame game, there it is just perpetuating the sense of a separate self. Who am I to? Who is to be blamed? I did the bad job. I was the sinner. So it is again perpetuating the sense of limited self, and not the right place to be. Shame. Who did that action? I did that action, and I am very shameful. Again, perpetuating the separate ego. And we don't need to go there. Separate doer. I was the doer. I was the doer. So the moment one sees the mistake, the immediate step has to be taken, which is delve deeper in the being and uh, again rising up from those stillnesses in the right action. So the what is to be done? It is not, we don't have to draw back from action. It is not that I would not because I have said so many bad words, now I will keep a Maun Vrata for how many days. Because mother shares that that is very easy. Remaining silent is easy on the mouth. But when it is said that speak, but only speak what is required, then it is a bigger challenge for me. Then I push myself again and again. So we don't have to draw back from the actions. We just have to follow the truth of the being. So here one sees this beautiful example that Sri Aurobindo, that Alokda has shared. यहाँ पे, Shankaracharya has given this analogy of rope and the snake. So imagine that there is a rope, there is a snake that you see in front of your eyes, and it's a little far away from you. It's like a little dark, not very clear, and you see that snake from far away. Now, the moment you see it, what would you do? One may begin to fear it, one may want to kill it, or the other wise thing to do is to go close to it. Go closer, yet closer, yet closer. And the closer one goes, one sees, oh, it was not a snake. I need not use a pistol or a gun to hit it. It was just a rope. And this is what happens when we go closer to this sense of separate self. The closer and closer we go, we follow its source, and we see that what seemed like a separate self was just a figment of my imagination. It was not even there, and I was living a whole life based on the demands and expectations from that story. So, what is to be done? Whenever we are meeting with emotions, feelings, sensations, thoughts, we just go close. We just go close and see them for who they truly are. And this is how the illusion is then, taken off, and the truth of the being shines in front of us. That it was not a snake. I need not be afraid of it. It was just a rope. I just needed to go close to it. So whenever we go close to any life situation that we are facing, whenever we go close, and if we have really gotten close, it will disappear like smoke, and the truth will shine through it, as if it was just a mirage, which was calling me to the depth of the being. So this analogy is really very powerful analogy, which can dispel almost all illusions that one may, live in throughout a lifetime. So I'm not elaborating on these a few slokas that are taken up here from the Ishavasya Upanishad. Those of us who are interested, I think you can go through them later in your own leisure. So what is the bondage? The real bondage is the illusion of the ego. Now the paradox is that the ego is not even there. The thing that we were seeing, that snake and the rope thing. But it feels so alive that we live a lifetime living as a slave of the ego. But if we allow ourselves now to go closer of, let me see, what is this ego that I keep on calling? What is this ego? Where is it originating from? The more close we go to the source, we see that there is only truth at the center of it. It's almost saying that a wave from the ocean has no separate existence than the ocean itself. So where is the ego originating from? From the pure light of awareness, from the pure light of one and only consciousness. But can I allow myself to go close so that I can go close to the root? So that I see that the wave is coming only from the ocean. The wave is not a separate entity in itself. So what is to be afraid of? This is the illusion, and this is the bondage. This is the falsehood, as Mother shares. Falsehood of the ego, because it is not even there. What exists is only one truth of the divine. That is one thing that exists. Rest all is a fallacy. Rest all is the illusion of the mind. So what to do? She is revealing to us the truth away from the illusion and the deception of senses, not drawing back from action or refusing the action or rejecting it. Mother says, refusing it, rejecting it, a struggle useless and pernicious. We must not draw back from our duties and actions, but to do them in more and more beauty. Those things that I used to do earlier, done with more and more beauty and grace. As Krishna is telling Arjun that do not abandon the field. You are a Kshatriya. Even when you go and hide in the tent, you will not be at peace, because your dharma is to fight. Your swadharma is to fight. So what you are indulging in by not fighting is mithyachar. You are not doing the right action. So what to do? Act, but know who is acting. Act, and act from the right space of action. Dispel the illusion that you are acting, the role as acting. Know yourself who you truly are, and then act. but do not withdraw back from action. So mother continues, but living thee alone in the act. And Alokda shares that it is so difficult, it is much easier to withdraw in the Maun Vrat, that I will not speak with anyone or will go for a retreat. I'm not saying going for a retreat is not good. Obviously, it's nice. But withdrawing from the world is not a solution for our miseries. The solution of our misery is to live and act more and more as the deeper truth of my being, rather than from the surface consciousness, which appears as the ego. Acting more and more from the source. And in there we have a long, long, long way to go, because many a times we know that we just stumble, we act from the ego. Only later we realize that this should not have been done, and that is okay too. So, but living thee alone in the act, whatever it may be, ever and always thee, then the illusion is dispelled. The illusion of a separate entity called me, myself, is dispelled. Letting the mother act in everything. The falsehoods of the senses vanish. The bond of consequences is broken. All is transformed into a manifestation of the glory of thy eternal presence. We bask more and more in that presence that we feel more and more strongly now in our being. That empty presence that we feel. Alive and empty, conscious presence. So mother says, let it be. Mother first declares what is the right way, and mother shares now, let it be. Just delve into the act more and more from that space and let it be. Yes. And the more we walk on this path, we know it for ourselves that something is happening which is right. Nobody has to tell me from external, no external person has to validate that yes, I am doing the right thing. One will know in the depths of the being that yes, this is the right way to go. It just happens, it just clicks, something clicks within. So I think I have really said enough. Once I just, it's like a ball rolling, once you ask me to speak, I can just go ahead and do the stuff again and again and again. So please share if any reflections, else we will read the prayer. Yes, okay then. Who would like to read the prayer? December 10, 1912. Shreya, are you there? Would you like to read?
Yeah, but I can't read because I'm using my phone and the screen is not coming as full screen.
कोई बात, no issue. So Chitra ji, in that case, maybe you can read this prayer, December 10, 1912.
Yeah. Yeah. O Supreme Master, Eternal Teacher, it has been once more granted me to verify the unequaled effectivity of a full confidence in thy leading. Thy light was manifested through my mouth yesterday, and it met no resistance in me. The instrument was willing, supple, keen of edge. It is thou who art the doer in each thing and each being, and he who is near enough to thee to see thee in all actions without exception will know how to transform each act into a benediction. To abide always in thee is the one thing that matters, always and evermore and more in thee. Beyond illusions and the deceptions of the senses, not drawing back from action, refusing it, rejecting it, a struggle useless and pernicious, but leaving thee alone in the act, whatever it may be, ever and always thee. Then the illusion is dispelled, the falsehoods of the senses vanish, the bond of consequences is broken, all is transformed into a manifestation of the glory of thy eternal presence. So let it be.
Yeah, beautiful.
Grace.
So thanks everyone. If there is anything, just share, else we call it a day then.
Thank you, Monica. It is beautiful. Actually. Yeah.
Thank you, Jyotsna.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica.
Thank you, Jyotsna. Bye-bye.
Monica, I had a question if you're not in a rush to go.
Bilkul, bilkul. At this, the prayer or something else?
It's on one of the things that you said.
Haan.
When emotions, for example, arise, allow them, invite them in instead of rejecting them.
Yes, yes, yes.
What I have seen is that, so I don't exactly know what you mean by allowing them in, because I see that with me, I identify with them. So if pain is coming, I invite it in and I allow it to sit forever.
Acha,
So,
right, right. So let us go through it. I have touched it in some other sessions also, because allowing the pain to be does not mean thinking about the pain.
Mhm.
Allowing the suffering to be does not mean that I am thinking about me and my suffering.
Mhm.
It just means that, yeah, please share. Yeah.
But emotion always comes with a story, right?
Exactly. So what we have to do is that when it comes in the beginning, emotion, we see that there is this story associated with it, and there is this bodily sensation. I may, there may be burning in the chest, or somewhere I'm feeling some raw sensation.
Right.
Okay? So there would be this combination that I will get some raw sensation of the body
Right.
and the story in the head.
Yes.
So when I say allowing the emotion to be,
Mm-hmm.
it means that I am there meeting the emotion as a raw sensation of the body, not thinking about the emotion, because in thinking about the story, I am not meeting the raw sensation.
Okay.
So imagine that you have come to me for, to meet me, and instead of being with you, I am thinking about you. Will I ever be able to meet you?
I get what you mean. I mean, it's more of a theoretical concept for me right now, because as soon as emotion comes, story is there. If there is no story, the emotion will disappear.
Exactly. So that is what is the destiny of the emotion.
So it's almost like saying that step out of the story. I mean, it's
Yeah,
then there will
it's
not be
yeah.
any emotion even to invite.
No, why not? Why not? We encounter so many emotions throughout the day. Try this. But the thing, what will happen is that imagine that the emotion has come. Okay. If I do not meet the raw sensation in the body and stay with the story in the head, that emotion becomes, after a few years, my emotional pain.
Okay.
Right? Because
Right.
why it has become an emotional pain? Because I have never met this abandoned feeling. I have never met the raw sensation, and it came only to be met. So it has just stayed. That visitor just stayed forever because I never met. I was forever in the story about the emotion.
Right.
So the
I'm getting.
moment, yeah.
I understand what you mean. I'll have to
Yes.
practice it.
Yeah. Without practice,
Right.
everything is just pothi pad pad jag mua.
वही हो रहा है. But nonetheless, good will.
Yeah. Yes.
It's
Thank you.
really effective, Monica. What you said, I am doing it nowadays. Actually,
Yeah.
it's really effective. I could connect with that inner peace. No, really, I could taste it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for all those sessions I am watching. Actually,
Yes.
thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. Very glad to know.
Bye. Yeah.
Okay. Bye-bye
Thank
then.
you. Bye.
Bye, Monica. Bye, everyone.
Bye, Shreya. Bye, Jyotsna ji.